An archaeologist digging into a grassy mound in England uncovered 5 iron rivets, arranged in a perfect line. He followed them through the soil. More rivets appeared. Then the curved outline of wooden planks. The wood itself had vanished, but its shape remained as a dark stain pressed into the sand. Slowly, the outline grew into the prow of a ship. The vessel continued across the mound until it measured almost 90 feet from end to end. It had not sunk in a river. It had not washed ashore. Someone had dragged this enormous ship onto dry land, carried it uphill, placed it inside a trench, and buried it beneath thousands of tons of earth. At the center of the ship was a sealed wooden chamber. Inside were weapons, gold, silver, jewels, drinking vessels, foreign coins, and the shattered remains of one of the most famous helmets ever discovered. The burial was created around 1400 years ago. It belonged to a ruler, powerful enough to take an entire ship into the grave. But when archaeologists searched for his body, they found nothing. No skull, no bones, no teeth. Only an empty human-shaped space, surrounded by treasure. The site is called Sutton Hoo. Its discovery would transform what the world believed about early medieval England. And it began because one woman wanted to know what was hidden beneath the mounds outside her house. Sutton Hoo lies beside the River Deben, in Suffolk, on the eastern coast of England. Across the river stood an important Anglo-Saxon settlement near modern Woodbridge. The land rises above the water, creating a clear view toward the river and the sea beyond it. On this high ground were several ancient burial mounds. For centuries, local people could see the low hills, but did not know exactly what they contained. Some had already attracted treasure hunters. During the Tudor period, people obtained permission to dig into ancient mounds and keep part of whatever they found. In the 19th century, another excavation disturbed several graves. Iron rivets were reportedly removed and taken to a blacksmith because no one understood that they had once held a ship together. But the largest mound survived. The people digging into it had misjudged the center. Their tunnel passed close to the burial chamber without entering it. That mistake preserved one of the richest graves ever found in Europe. The land eventually belonged to Edith Pretty. She had traveled widely, visited archaeological sites, and developed a strong interest in the past. From her home, she could see the strange mounds rising above the estate. In 1938, she contacted a local archaeologist named Basil Brown and asked him to investigate them. Brown was not a wealthy university professor. He was a self-taught archaeologist who had spent years studying the soil, pottery, and ancient landscapes of Suffolk. He understood that small changes in the ground could reveal structures invisible from the surface. His first excavations focused on several smaller mounds. They had been robbed, but he recovered fragments of pottery, metalwork, weapons, cremated remains, and ship rivets. Those discoveries convinced Edith Pretty to invite him back. In May 1939, Brown began work on the largest mound. If discoveries that reveal forgotten kingdoms are why you are here, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what Basil Brown found beneath that field did more than uncover a grave. It brought an entire lost age back into history. Brown cut carefully into the mound. When a worker noticed a piece of iron, Brown stopped the digging and examined it with a small trowel. 5 rivets appeared in their original positions. They formed part of the front of a ship. As the excavation widened, the shape became unmistakable. The vessel had been built from overlapping wooden planks, held together by iron rivets. Its sides curved upward. Marks in the soil preserved the positions of ribs, planks, and places where oars had rested. The wood had completely decayed. What remained was the fossil-like impression of a ship created by differences in the sand. Excavating it required extraordinary care. One careless movement could destroy the outline forever. Brown followed the vessel from bow to stern. The ship measured about 27 meters long and more than 4 meters wide. It had probably been built for rowing and sailing along rivers and coastal waters. There was no deep keel designed for crossing open oceans in severe conditions, but it was large enough to carry dozens of people and required a skilled crew. The ship had been moved from the River Deben to the burial ground. Its route uphill is unknown. Workers may have dragged it over wooden rollers or a prepared track. The effort would have required a large group acting together. This was not a private funeral conducted quietly by one family. It was a public demonstration of power. At the center of the ship, Brown discovered a rectangular burial chamber. For a moment, signs in the soil suggested that robbers had reached it. Then he realized that they had missed. Centuries of erosion and quarrying had changed the shape of the mound. Treasure hunters dug toward what they believed was the center, but the original chamber lay somewhere else. The grave was still sealed. News of the discovery spread quickly. Experts from Cambridge University and the British Museum arrived. Charles Phillips took formal control of the excavation, while Brown remained a central member of the team. They were now racing against time. Europe was moving toward war. The excavation could not continue indefinitely. The chamber had to be recorded and emptied before conflict interrupted the work. On July 21st, archaeologist Peggy Piggott uncovered the first pieces of gold. 2 small jeweled fittings emerged from the soil. Then more objects appeared. A massive gold buckle, shoulder clasps made from gold, garnet and glass, a decorated purse lid, coins, a sword with a gold and garnet hilt, a shield, spears, a coat of mail, drinking horns, silver bowls, wooden cups with metal fittings, a lyre, textiles, leather shoes, a great silver platter, and hundreds of fragments from an iron helmet that had collapsed beneath the weight of the mound. In total, the excavation recorded 263 separate finds made from gold, garnet, silver, bronze, enamel, iron, wood, bone, textile, feathers, and fur. Many of the organic materials survived only as stains or tiny traces attached to metal. The acidic soil had dissolved wood and bone, but the objects revealed the identity the mourners wanted the dead person to carry into the next world. He was presented as a warrior, a ruler, a wealthy host, a patron of skilled craftspeople, and a leader connected to lands far beyond eastern England. The sword was a weapon of enormous status. Its iron blade had been created through pattern welding, a difficult process in which strips of metal were twisted, joined, and forged together. The hilt was decorated with gold and garnet. Wear on the weapon suggests its owner may have carried it on his right side and drawn it with his left hand. The mourners placed the sword on the right side of the body, perhaps preserving something personal about how the man had worn it in life. The gold buckle weighed more than 400 grams. Its surface was covered with intertwined animals and dark metal inlay. It was not simply a device for holding a belt closed. It was a display of wealth made by a craftsperson capable of controlling gold with extraordinary precision. The shoulder clasps were equally complex. Slices of garnet had been cut into small shapes and fitted into gold cells. Behind some stones were patterned gold foils that reflected light through the garnet, making the surface appear brighter. The raw stone may have originated thousands of miles away, possibly in South Asia. By the time the garnets reached England, they had passed through trade networks connecting several regions. The purse lid contained similar gold and garnet work. The leather purse had disappeared, but inside it were 37 gold coins, 3 blank gold pieces, and 2 small ingots. The coins came from the Frankish kingdoms across the English Channel. They were made by different rulers and mints. Their dates help place the burial around the year 625. The exact purpose of the collection is uncertain. The coins may have represented wealth, payment, tribute, or a symbolic offering. Some have suggested that the number may relate to the crew of the ship, but this has not been proven. Near the head of the dead person was the helmet, When it was excavated, it was not standing in one piece. It had collapsed into hundreds of corroded fragments. Conservators spent years studying and rebuilding them. The reconstructed helmet has a deep iron cap, cheek guards, a neck guard, and a full face mask. Its decorated panels show warriors, animals, and scenes of combat. Silver wire runs along the crest. Gilded animal heads meet above the nose. The eyebrows end in bores. Garnets line parts of the face. When viewed together, the mask becomes a dragon. The eyebrows form its wings. The nose becomes its body. The mustache becomes its tail. The helmet protected the head, but it also transformed the person wearing it. In battle or ceremony, the face of the ruler disappeared behind a creature made from iron, silver, gold, and garnet. Its style connects England with Sweden and the wider North Sea world. Similar helmets appear in Scandinavian burials and images. The shield and drinking horns also show Northern European connections. But other objects point much farther away. A huge silver platter had been made in Constantinople, capital of the Byzantine Empire. It was already around a century old when placed in the burial. 10 silver bowls also came from the Eastern Mediterranean. 2 silver spoons bore Greek inscriptions associated with Saul and Paul, names linked to the Christian story of conversion. Other objects came from Egypt, continental Europe, and distant trade networks. The burial revealed that 7th century England was not isolated. Its rulers had access to objects, materials, and ideas moving across an enormous area. This directly challenged the old image of the period after Roman rule as an age of complete decline. Roman government had disappeared from Britain centuries earlier. Cities had changed. Long-distance systems had weakened. Written sources became less common. Later historians described these centuries as the Dark Ages. Sutton Hoo showed a different world. Its craftspeople understood advanced metalworking. Its rulers controlled wealth and labor. Its ships connected rivers and seas. Its elite participated in political and trading networks, stretching from Scandinavia to the Byzantine Empire. The darkness came from the shortage of surviving records, not from a lack of culture. But the most important object in the chamber was missing. The body had vanished. At first, some researchers wondered whether the burial had always been empty. Perhaps it was a cenotaph, a monument built for someone who died elsewhere. Later excavation and chemical analysis solved part of the mystery. The soil beneath the chamber contained unusually high levels of phosphate. This indicated that a human body had decomposed there. The acidic ground had dissolved the skeleton just as it dissolved the wooden ship. The person was real. Their identity remains uncertain. The leading candidate is Radvald, king of East Anglia. He ruled during the early 7th century and was remembered as one of the most powerful kings in southern England. According to the historian Bede, Radvald accepted Christianity, but continued honoring older gods. Bede claimed he maintained a temple containing both a Christian altar and another altar used for traditional worship. The Sutton Hoo burial appears to belong to that same period of religious uncertainty. The ship, weapons, animals, and burial mound follow pre-Christian traditions. The silver spoons and cross-shaped decorations suggest contact with Christianity. The grave combines both worlds without clearly belonging to only one. Radvald died close to the date suggested by the coins. He had the wealth and authority required for such a funeral. The burial ground also lay within his kingdom. But no inscription names him. Another king or member of the ruling family could have occupied the chamber. Archaeology can narrow the possibilities. It cannot give the dead man a name with certainty. The ship burial was only part of Sutton Hoo. Later excavations revealed another ship burial, high-status graves, cremations, horses, weapons, and the burial of a warrior beside his sword. Researchers also found a darker group of graves between the royal mounds. 39 people had died violently. Some had bound limbs, broken necks, or severed heads. Post holes nearby may mark the position of gallows. The landscape that once held royal funerals may later have become a place of execution. Power continued to shape Sutton Hoo even after its kings were gone. In August 1939, the main excavation ended. A legal inquest decided that the treasure belonged to Edith Pretty because it had been buried as a grave, not hidden for later recovery. She could have kept or sold it. Instead, she donated the entire collection to the British Museum. It became one of the largest gifts ever made to the institution by a living donor. Weeks later, Britain entered the Second World War. The Sutton Hoo treasures were moved into an unused London Underground tunnel for protection. They survived the bombing of the city. Some excavation records were not as fortunate and were destroyed during the war. Archaeologists later returned to the mound to recover information that had been lost. Today, the ship itself cannot be displayed. Almost none of its wood survived. The original vessel exists as measurements, photographs, rivets, soil stains, and the shape recorded by the excavators. Projects are now attempting to build a full-scale reconstruction using evidence from the burial. The treasures remain the clearest image of the world that created it. The helmet stares through its iron mask. The gold buckle still carries its twisting animals. The sword remains beside an owner whose hand disappeared. The silver platter still bears marks from Constantinople. Every object crossed centuries because one community placed them around a dead ruler and sealed them inside a ship. They expected the mound to be seen. They expected the burial to be remembered. They could not have known that the ship would disappear while its shadow remained. 1400 years later, Basil Brown followed 5 iron rivets into the soil and found the outline of an entire lost kingdom. The wood was gone. The body was gone. The name of the ruler was gone. But the ship, the gold, and the helmet had preserved the world around him. The next investigation is waiting on screen now.